Yes, that title is no exaggeration. I find this book to be one of, if not the best ever, I think, for the game. But I stayed with a world building, action, and an actual good love story. I'm not even kidding. This is a well written story. Even if the premise seems a bit queer. Laugh. Listen, that was the joke. You're supposed to laugh. Anyway, welcome, guys, gals, and non binary pals. Sit back and relax because it's time for a story. Now, major spoiler warning. For obvious reasons. But I say you need to read the book. If you don't want to spend money on it, the web novel is available for free with a link in the description. But I highly recommend buying the books. My favorite games were dating sims, the kind where you played as the heroine and got to romance a bunch of boys, though I tended to play them a little differently from most. Ray Taylor awakens in a high school classroom. Her first interaction is being bullied by a girl with golden locks, Claire Francois. Ray is initially confused, but starts to piece it all together. She was an otaku in her past life and loved all sorts of games. Board games, video games, and yes, otome games. Claire is actually someone from her favorite otome game, Revolution. Ray, she only saw one problem with the game. You can't romance Claire. As someone well versed in isekai, she instantly realizes that she isn't in Kansai anymore, and realizes this is her chance to romance Claire. By page 9, we get this line. Miss Claire, I love you. Claire is baffled by this. Being from essentially medieval times, this world has no concept of gay people. Well, it does, but that's besides the point. Even asking if Ray is batting for that team. Ray is pleased by the possibility to kiss her life of overtime and overexhaustion goodbye, replacing it with a life with Claire. Of course, not everyone is pleased. Misha Jewel, who has a mature, husky voice and long, straight blonde hair, is quite pissed. Ray, I heard what you did. Don't tell me you really attracted Claire's attention on your first day of school. Ray, however, gives less craps than a constipated person about what Misha thinks, and does everything to get Claire's attention, leading to Claire bullying her, even stomping on her. But Ray enjoys that. I'm not kidding, Ray likes being bullied, and she torments Claire over it. I love the dynamic. It's the start of an enemies to lovers trope, plain as day, but you can tell it's gonna be a good one. And then we get introduced to 3 romanceable characters. First up is Yubauer, the third-born prince with soft, curly blonde hair and a gentle but cheerful smile. Yu's path in the game is one that people don't tend to like due to it being rather difficult, since you have to tango between Yu and Misha, having both of them like you, which is hard since Misha likes you, not the player, the character. Then there's Rodbauer, a good-looking boy with spiky black hair, and the firstborn prince. He has the easiest route since no other main character is infatuated with him. And finally is Thane Bauer, a silver-haired boy. Thane has an inferiority complex due to being the middle child. Yu was born smart and Rod worked for his accomplishments. Thane, he's just in the middle. This is why he's Ray's favorite route though, since he's the most down-to-earth of the options. However, being a boy is a pretty big turnoff for Ray regardless. What complicates his route is that Claire feels the L word towards him. No, not lesbians. That comes later. Love. In his route, you piss Claire off more than she's normally pissed off, making his route the hardest. Anyways, Claire bets that she can get a better grade than Ray on the big exam coming up. And Ray, who knows that in the game you get an affinity percent regardless, accepts, on the condition that the winner gets to pick one thing the loser must do. Upon winning, Ray makes Claire promise to never give up. Claire thought she would have to kiss Ray or something. The horror. So it's like, fine, what the hey. A bit of status hate later, and Ray decides to get a job as a maid for Claire. She manages to get the job by blackmailing Claire's dad with the following information. Irvine Manuel, March 3rd, 500,000 gold. Ray uses her position as maid to hit on Claire. Well, that and to make Claire's life easier. She trains under Claire's other maid, Lenny Autoshaw. I think I'm saying that right? Autoshaw? The only maid of Claire's to stick around longer than a few years. Ray knows this from reading the character guide to make fanfiction as accurate as possible. No, I'm not kidding, this is legit from the book. Can you see why I love it yet? In general, this scene has some of the best lines, like the reference to a sentence of a bookworm. After learning that there's a restaurant called Brome with really high quality food, and that Claire doesn't like green peppers, both equally important plot points, we move on to some school. First up, culture. Ray knows this world cover to cover, so she's bored out of her mind. Now, there's supposed to be an ideal world, so there's no homework. Rather, people are free to do whatever after school. Claire talks to her friends about the new dessert from Brome, chocolate. Genre-savvy readers might pick up that Ray sold chocolate to Brome. You'd be right. Later, Ray waits by Claire's bed for her to fall asleep. When asked why she likes Claire, she responds that it's because Claire is pretty and kind. However, Claire disagrees. Contrary to appearances, I know myself. My personality isn't one that earns affection. There's no need for empty compliments. I want to know what it is you're really after. The next day, Rod was at the center of a group of frat boys, being loud and rowdy in the cafeteria. Ray is unamused, but is called over by Rod. Claire forces Ray to go, and once she does, she's forced into a game of chess with Rod. Deciding to go easy on him, she still puts up a valiant fight. However, Rod could tell, Ray went easy on him. A week later, Claire's being taught chess by Ray. You see, Claire can't accept defeat. She wants to be the very best, like no one ever was. Yu comes up, having been hanging out with many girls. You see, being the best chess player in the academy, they can tell Ray's just baiting Claire into moving Sid in pieces. You suggested they play poker, and so they did. Misha even joined in too, along with many of Yu's friends. Dealer, Didi, was one of them. He managed to give you 4 aces, while also giving Gray an ace. Whether or not you knew about this, Ray didn't want to play anymore. Finally, in a royal rotation is Thane. Ray recognized the fact that Claire would be happiest with Thane, even though Ray preferred to be with Claire. She just wants Claire to be happy, so she tries to be the best wing chick ever. Over in the courtyard, Thane is playing the harp. It's an event from the game, one marking the start of Thane's path, and so Ray helps Claire jumpstart that path. Thane, kicking himself, claims that he was just goofing off. It's not good enough to play in front of people. Being an unintended deviation, Ray decides to help him out by playing a game called the King's Game, or as they call it in Japan, The Osama game. To play, everyone draws a card, numbered from 1 to the number of players. Whoever has card 1 is the king, and says something along the lines of, number X and number Y have to Z. Ray and Lene both decide to communicate their numbers to each other, and make Thane and Claire stroke each other's heads and kiss. What does this game have to do with the qualities of a king? Ray starts backtracking, claiming the idea is to make sure that the king won't abuse their power. Thane buys it. Ray, are you what they call gay? Misha dropped this bombshell on Ray when she was eating lunch. Claire and Lene choked. Ray explains that she's not quite sure, but she's never really had that kind of special feeling for a guy. Claire inches away, now seeing Ray as some sort of pervert. It's tense. But then Misha says something that shocked everyone at the table. Miss Claire, you're being prejudiced. I might even say discriminatory. Think about it. You're heterosexual, are you not? Of course. How would you feel if a boy told you, don't hit on me? How dare you think me so desperate? But that's exactly how you're treating Ray. Oh. After being confused for being bi or pan by Lene saying that gender just doesn't matter for Ray, Ray clarifies that gender does matter. She wasn't into men, and while she understands that most of her loves will be unrequited, she recognizes that she isn't the only one who has frustration in love, glancing at Lene. Moving away from something that hits way too close to home, we move to something far from home. No, not the Spider-Man movies. Get that off the screen. Magic. Yes, it is time for magic class. See, Clark's third law is in effect, or its inverse. For those who don't spend all day browsing TV tropes, Clark's third law states, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, while its inverse states that any sufficiently analyzed magic is no different from technology. The magic here is treated like a science, and magic class is no exception. It's been heavily analyzed and documented. Right now, the class is learning about combat magic, aka, it's an exposition dump. Monsters are weak against core magical stones. Each attribute has specific compatibility, and there are 4 combinations that are especially effective. Color represents attributes in magic. Black for earth, blue for water, red for fire, and white for wind. Generally, the more vibrant the color, the stronger the magical power. Earth magic is mainly used for defense. Building a wall is a basic skill. Some talented mages can even erect entire castle ramparts. Fire magic is primarily deployed for combat. Basic uses include shooting fire arrows and bullets. A more advanced example would be creating a sea of flames. Water magic is principally called on for recovery. It can be used to cure wounds and diseases. They say extremely skilled wielders can even regenerate lost body parts, though no one can raise the dead. Wind is mainly used in a supporting role. When combined with fire magic, an attack is made stronger. Water magic, recovery is faster. It is not as compatible with its opposing attribute, earth. It's sort of like rock, paper, scissors. Fire beats earth. Earth beats wind. Wind beats water. And water beats fire. Note is that most people can only control one element. Dual casters like Ray can control 2. And those are somewhat common. Tricasters like Mr. Torrid can control 3. And are very rare. While the master of all 4 elements, the quadcaster, is super rare. There is only one, who happens to be important to the story later. Everyone was practicing their magic. Thane and Misha went to the wind section. Ray practiced her earth and water. Claire and Rod, fire. You, water. That is, until the giant slime monster attacks. It's a hard battle, but ultimately, almost everyone is knocked out. in the game, the heroine calls for one of the romance book characters. But here, Ray calls for Claire. Claire and Thane finish off the monster, but Ray runs off. See, the monster was a mom and was just protecting her child. Ray decided to adopt the little slime monster who can shapeshift, naming it Relayer, a portmanteau couple name of Ray and Claire. And that is the end of Chapter 1. Well, there's some fluff, Ray and Claire interacting, but that's been summed up in that very sentence. I hope to see you guys all next time when I go over Chapter 2.